My wife replaced me with my stepdaughter, real father, so I sold the house and disappeared. I never imagined that one sentence could destroy 22 years of my life. My wife looked directly into my eyes and said, "She has a real father now. You should understand your place." I smiled, not because it didn't hurt. It hurt so badly that I could barely breathe. But I had learned something during those 22 years of marriage. Sometimes, the person standing in front of you can become a complete stranger while you are still calling them the love of your life. My name is Daniel, and this is the story of how I lost my family, my home, and almost everything I believed about love. But strangely enough, losing them was also how I found myself again. I met Laura when I was 32. She was a beautiful woman with a 6-year-old daughter named Emily. Emily was quiet when I first met her. She stayed close to her mother and rarely looked directly into my eyes. Her biological father had left when she was only 2. Laura told me he had promised to come back. He never did. At first, I was afraid of becoming involved with a child who wasn't mine. I didn't want to make promises I couldn't keep. But one afternoon, Emily came running toward me with a drawing in her hands. "Look what I made." It was a picture of 3 people standing beneath a huge yellow sun. Laura was on one side, Emily was in the middle, and I was on the other. I pointed at myself. "Who am I?" Emily smiled. "You're the man who makes Mommy laugh." I laughed. "That sounds like an important job." She nodded seriously. "It is." That little girl slowly became the center of my world. When Laura and I married, I didn't try to replace Emily's father. I simply became the man who showed up. I took her to school. I attended parent meetings. I stayed awake when she had nightmares. I helped her learn how to ride a bicycle. I bought her first guitar. When she got sick, I slept in the chair beside her bed. When she won a school award, I was the loudest person in the room. When boys started breaking her heart, I listened without judging. And when she graduated from college, I stood in the crowd with tears in my eyes. I never once said, "I did this for you." I never needed gratitude. I loved her because she was family. Because somewhere along the way, she had stopped being my stepdaughter in my heart. She was simply Emily. My daughter. At least that's what I believed. Then, 22 years after I first met Laura, everything changed. One Tuesday evening, I came home from work and noticed 2 cars parked outside. One belonged to Laura. The other was unfamiliar. I walked inside. I heard laughter coming from the kitchen. Then I heard a man's voice. Emily was always stubborn, just like her mother. I froze. I knew that voice. Laura had shown me an old photograph of Emily's biological father years ago. His name was Richard. He had disappeared shortly after Emily was born. I stepped into the kitchen. Richard turned around. He was older now, but I recognized him immediately. Laura stood beside him. Emily was sitting at the table. She looked at me. "Dad." I smiled weakly. "What's going on?" Nobody answered for several seconds. Then Laura finally spoke. "Richard is back." I looked at him. After 22 years. Richard lowered his eyes. "I know I have a lot to explain." I looked at Emily. She was crying. For some reason, I felt relieved. I thought maybe she was upset because this was confusing. I thought maybe she needed me. I was wrong. That night, Laura told me Richard had contacted Emily. He wanted to rebuild his relationship with her. I said that's fine. Laura looked surprised. "You're not angry?" "No." I tried to smile. He's her biological father. If Emily wants to know him, she should. My wife hugged me. At that moment, I believed everything would be okay. I believed there was enough room for everyone. I was wrong again. Over the next few weeks, Richard became a regular visitor. He came to dinner. He attended family gatherings. He took Emily shopping. He bought her expensive gifts. He told stories about her childhood. And slowly, I became invisible. At first, I ignored it. I told myself I was being insecure. But then small things started happening. One evening, Emily needed help fixing a cabinet. I stood up. "I'll do it." Richard laughed. "Don't worry, her father can handle it." The room became silent. Emily looked at me. I sat back down. Of course. Another time, Laura asked Richard to join us for a family vacation. I stared at her. Family vacation. She nodded. He's her father. I forced a smile. Right. Then came the dinner that changed everything. It was Emily's birthday. I had spent days preparing. I ordered her favorite cake. I bought her a beautiful necklace. I even found an old photograph of us from when she was 10. I had it framed. When I walked into the restaurant, I saw Richard sitting beside Emily. Laura was beside him. There was only one empty chair. It was at the far end of the table. I sat down. Emily opened gifts. Richard gave her a car. Everyone applauded. I handed her the small box containing the necklace. She opened it. "Oh." She smiled politely. "Thank you." Then she turned toward Richard. "Dad, look at this." My heart cracked. I looked down at my hands. For 22 years, I had been there. But that night, I realized blood could erase memories faster than I ever imagined. After dinner, I confronted Laura. "What exactly am I to you now?" She sighed. "Don't make this dramatic. I'm asking a simple question." She crossed her arms. "Richard is Emily's real father." I stared at her. "And I'm what?" "You're her stepfather." That word had never hurt before. That night it sounded like an insult. I whispered, "After 22 years." Laura shrugged. "You knew what you were getting into." I walked away. But the worst was still coming. A few days later, Laura asked me to sit down. Richard was there. Emily was there too. I immediately knew something was wrong. Laura said, "We need to talk about the house." I looked at her. "What about it?" Richard spoke. "Emily feels more comfortable here with her father around." I almost laughed. "Her father?" Richard leaned forward. "You've had your time." Those words stayed with me. "You've had your time." I looked at Emily. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Then Laura said something I will never forget. "Maybe it's time for you to move somewhere else for a while." I sat completely still. "Move out?" "Just temporarily." I looked around the room. This was the house I had paid for. The kitchen where Emily had learned to cook. The hallway where I had helped her hang graduation photographs. The living room where Laura and I had spent countless evenings together. And now they wanted me gone. I stood up. "Okay." Laura looked surprised. "Okay." "Yes." I walked upstairs. I opened my desk. Inside was every important document I owned, including the house deed. I sat there for nearly an hour. Then I made a phone call. The next morning, I contacted a real estate agent. I decided to sell the house. Not because they had asked me to leave, but because I realized something. If a house no longer felt like home, then it was only a building. Within 2 weeks, I had a buyer. I didn't tell Laura. I didn't tell Emily. I didn't tell Richard. I simply packed my belongings. One evening, Laura came home and found boxes everywhere. "What are you doing?" "Moving." She stared at me. "Where?" "Somewhere peaceful." She looked confused. "Daniel, you can't just leave." I looked at her. "You asked me to." "That was different." "No." I shook my head. "It wasn't." Then I handed her a folder. She opened it. Her face turned pale. "What is this?" "The house sale." She stared at me. "You sold the house." "Yes." "You had no right." I looked at her calmly. "It was in my name." She began shouting. Emily came downstairs. "What happened?" Laura pointed at me. "He sold the house." Emily looked at me. "You actually sold it?" I nodded. She whispered, "Why?" I looked at the daughter I had raised. Because I finally understood that I wasn't wanted here. Her eyes filled with tears. "That isn't true." I swallowed hard. "Then why did you let your mother tell me I had to leave?" She had no answer. Richard appeared behind her. He looked angry. "This is childish." I turned toward him. "No, Richard. What's childish is disappearing for 22 years and then expecting everyone to hand you the family you abandoned." He said nothing. I picked up my suitcase. Laura grabbed my arm. "Daniel, please." I gently pulled away. "You chose him." She cried. "I didn't mean it." "You did." I walked toward the door. Emily followed me. "Dad." I stopped. She had never called me that with such desperation. I turned around. She was crying. "I don't want you to go." I looked at her. "Then why didn't you stop me before?" She couldn't answer. I walked outside. That was the last time I saw them for months. I rented a small apartment in a quiet town. For the first few weeks, I barely slept. Every morning, I woke up expecting to hear Emily's footsteps. Every evening, I expected Laura to call. But silence became my new normal. I started walking every morning. I began reading again. I visited places I had always wanted to see. Slowly, I discovered something terrifying. I had spent 22 years taking care of everyone else. I had forgotten how to take care of myself. 3 months passed. Then I received a message from Emily. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for several minutes. Finally, I replied, "Yes." We met at a small coffee shop. She looked different. Older. Sad. She sat across from me. "I miss you." I smiled faintly. "I miss you too." She cried. "I made a mistake." I didn't respond. She continued. "I thought because Richard was my biological father, I needed to choose him." I looked at her. "You didn't need to choose." "I know that now." She wiped her tears. "You were the one who raised me." I looked down. "I never wanted you to choose between us." "I know." She reached across the table. "I called him Dad because I thought I was finally getting the father I lost." I nodded. "And what did you discover?" She looked at me. "He never knew my favorite food. He didn't know what I studied. He didn't know my first boyfriend's name. He didn't know I hated thunderstorms." She smiled through tears. "But you knew everything." I couldn't stop my own tears. She whispered, "You were my father long before I understood what being a father meant." I reached across the table and held her hand. I never stopped loving you. She cried harder. But Mom, I knew there was more. What about your mother? She regrets everything. I looked away. Regret doesn't rebuild a home. She nodded. I know. Before she left, she hugged me. It was the same hug she had given me when she was 6 years old. And for the first time in months, I felt peace. A week later, Laura came to my apartment. She stood outside my door crying. I lost you. I looked at her. You didn't lose me. She waited. You replaced me. She closed her eyes. I was wrong. Yes. I thought bringing Richard back would make Emily whole. It didn't. No. She looked at me. It broke something else instead. I didn't invite her inside. She didn't ask. I still love you, she whispered. I smiled sadly. I loved you too. Too. I nodded. That version of me is gone. She cried. I didn't. Not because I didn't care. Because sometime love means accepting that something beautiful has ended. I never returned to that house. I never regretted selling it. The money gave me freedom, but the freedom gave me something much more valuable. Peace. Emily and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. She visited me often. Sometimes we talked for hours. Sometimes we sat quietly. She never called me her stepfather again. She simply called me Dad. And every time she said it, I remembered the little girl who once showed me a drawing beneath a yellow sun. Years later, I finally understood something. Family isn't always created by blood. Sometimes family is created by sleepless nights, hospital rooms, school meetings, broken bicycles, birthday cakes, difficult conversations, and thousands of ordinary moments when someone chooses to stay. Richard gave Emily his blood, but I gave her my life. And when my wife tried to replace me, I didn't fight for a place at their table. I simply walked away. Because sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is stop begging to belong where they are no longer valued. I sold the house. I disappeared. But I didn't lose my daughter. In the end, I discovered something far more important. I never needed that house to prove I had been her father. I never needed Laura's approval. And I never needed Richard to understand. All I needed was the truth. I had loved them honestly. I had stayed when others left. And when they finally decided they didn't need me anymore, I had the courage to leave with my dignity intact. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and stay with us for the next emotional family story. Your support means more than you know. Thank you for listening, watching, and being part of our family. Red.